I mean, this is a pitch to the Sanders voters a little bit. Does he have a shot there?
Not much of one. I haven't seen a poll that shows me there's a wide amount of shifting that would go from Sanders to Trump. And anecdotally, like Molly visiting with voters over the last few weeks, I've had really interesting conversations. I remember two Hispanic voters out in Vegas who said, Trump makes a lot of good points on the economy, but he is racist, and so I can't vote for him. And I think for a lot of Sanders-type voters, that will be the issue. It's like he's kind of singing my song on the economics of all this, but given his tone and his style and what he has said about women and Muslims and others, it's just something that they can't tolerate. And so, I just don't see it. I think what this is more for him is a play for Pennsylvania, which Republicans try to make every 4 years. But
haven't won it since 1988.
Exactly, but might actually succeed in at least getting closer this time. And then Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, places like that, where he isn't winning, but where they realize he has to if he really wants to run the Electoral College map.
Jerry, let's move now to the vice presidential speculation. First, let's talk about Donald Trump. What can he do with a vice presidential pick? Can he fix some of these issues Republicans have had with him? What's your sense?
I think one of the things he said he wants to do is ease some of the concern in Washington by picking somebody who can navigate Washington. Now that's a pretty wide definition. He met this week with a couple of days ago with Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, who also happens to have been a longtime House member in the Republican Party and is well known and well trusted around Washington. So that's the kind of pick that gives you a twofer. You please the social conservatives in your party because Mike Pence makes them very comfortable, but you also have somebody who has Washington experience. So you can also simply try to stay out of trouble with a vice presidential pick. Pick somebody safe, and that's true in both parties. But I do think the Trump short list that we've been hearing, the Chris Christie, the Newt Gingrich, Mike Pence list is the right one. I have a feeling there's some name out there that we haven't quite heard yet that we're going to pick up in the next couple of days.
Molly, let's think about Christie and Gingrich. As Jerry was saying, one option is picking someone who kind of does no harm. Christie and Gingrich have strong personalities. Donald Trump has a strong personality. How do you think that would work in terms of everybody staying on the same song sheet, given the challenges Donald Trump has had with the song sheet so far?
Well, we talk about this like it's all Donald Trump's decision, but unlike a lot of years, there's been a lot of people taking themselves out of consideration. And so I think we've seen Christie and Gingrich most prominently engaged in a long audition process with Trump where they prove that they can subordinate their large personalities to his, and both of them have been doing that quite obsequiously. I don't think it's too strong a word. And also, showing that they will stay on his message, which can be a challenging message sometimes. We saw, Bob Corker had been very strongly in the mix and then was critical of Trump at some times. And if you're not willing to toe the line every single time, you lose points in Mr. Trump's eyes. One more name that I've heard a little bit of buzz about behind the scenes is Richard Burr from North Carolina. Yeah. He's been mentioned once or twice, but not as prominently. I do hear that he's on the list, but who knows? Trump could wake up on a different side of the bed one day and go a totally different way.
It's funny that the guys that are all mentioned here have nothing to lose. Gingrich isn't in office, and if this doesn't go well, he'll go back to doing what he does, which is, being a pundit, making money, and being Newt Gingrich. Christie, look, if he wins, he becomes vice president. If he doesn't, he can go back and be governor for a few years, even though, people outside of blood relatives and paid staff don't like him right now in New Jersey. And Burr is another great example. Chairman of the Intelligence Committee, good friend of John Boehner, up for a tough re-election. If he doesn't win his re-election and doesn't win vice president, as a former senator who ran the Intelligence Committee, he'll do just fine in the money department. So all of these guys really, that are at top of mind at least, don't have anything to lose, despite the fact that they'll have to work with Trump. And I think, one thing to keep in mind regarding Gingrich and Christie, at different times have had favorability ratings mired in the 30s. Might be wildly popular with Republicans, but they, like Trump, may struggle to sort of transcend the party and get undecided voters to like the ticket.
Yeah, so if they have nothing to lose, your argument is that might be why they would go with Trump.
And it's why they haven't ruled themselves out.
Right.
All these other folks, they see futures ahead of them, or they worry that they're going to lose a critical seat and they don't want to play.
On the other hand, if you've got nothing to lose, it might make you harder to keep in line as a vice president because you're as a candidate. Jerry, Donald Trump is meeting with the House and the Senate next week. To Molly's point in terms of trying to fix the campaign? What can he do with those meetings? Mitch McConnell said this week he wasn't a credible candidate yet.
Well, look, he's got some reassuring to do in Washington. I think part of the concern in Washington is that the campaign doesn't feel like it's a whole yet. But I think you're going to see some things in the next week that will be designed to fix that. You're going to hear announcements of state directors so that people know that there's a campaign organization out there. You're going to hear some June fundraising numbers, which they're saying are going to be pretty good. You're going to have a convention program that's going to come out that I think will make it look more like a conventional convention than some people either think or fear. So I think part of the reassuring of Washington is to show up, hear them out, but part is also to convey to Washington Republicans, hey, we have a campaign structure here. It's sound. It'll get us from here to November.
And this is a critical week for him, John, because it's the week after this coming one where delegates start heading to Cleveland to really start making the decisions about how this convention, the mechanics of it will go. A lot of this sort of brings back the Warrens' even song, Send Lawyers, Guns, and Money, because you're going to have a lot of that kind of odd chaos and really bad feelings about the whole thing. So if he doesn't do well this week in convincing those members of Congress,
it won't tamp down the restiveness in the party.